Commander Valsaren stood in front of the massive viewing window of her ship, the Radiant Fang. Beyond the glass stretched the endless black of space, filled with silver stars and blue nebulae that pulsed like living hearts. She had seen hundreds of worlds, fought in more than 20 campaigns, and never once felt fear. She was Zerathian, tall, scaled, and proud. Her people had conquered half the galaxy through discipline and logic. To her, emotion was weakness and superstition was foolishness. Yet across the Dominion there was one old story that refused to die, the story of the human soldiers. Every few cycles, someone whispered about them. Ancient warriors from a forgotten world, creatures of flesh and bone who fought metal giants and energy storms with nothing but courage. Some claimed humans once defeated entire fleets using only ground troops. Others said they had vanished long ago after destroying their own world in one last war. To Valsaren it was all nonsense. "Cadets," she said, turning toward her class. Rows of young Zerathian recruits stood at attention, their golden armor gleaming under the lights. Today's lesson is about myths and how they weaken the mind. She brought up a hologram. It showed an image taken from old Dominion archives, a soldier in old-fashioned armor, holding a projectile weapon, the flag of blue and white behind him. "This," Valsaren said with a smirk, "is what primitive species once called a human. They believed themselves to be the center of the universe. They waged endless wars even against each other until they vanished." A tragic but predictable end. One cadet raised his claw. "Commander, some records say they fought even when outnumbered." "Is that true?" Valsaren chuckled softly. "Perhaps, but bravery without wisdom is suicide. The Dominion thrives because we fight with strategy, not emotions." The cadets nodded in agreement. Valsaren continued, "Humans are stories told to entertain soldiers. We fight real wars, not legends." But somewhere deep inside, her second-in-command, Lieutenant Koro, shifted uncomfortably. He had always found those ancient tales fascinating. "Commander," he said carefully, "the High Archives list several human signals that were never decoded. What if some are still out there?" Valsaren raised a brow ridge. "Lieutenant, ghosts don't send signals." The bridge filled with quiet laughter. Yet fate, as it often did, had other plans. Later that day, as the fleet moved through the outer spiral, a transmission crackled through the communications array. It was weak, distorted, a whisper among stars. "Commander," said the sensor officer, "we're picking up an old emergency beacon. Frequency doesn't match Dominion patterns." Valsaren turned her head slightly. "Source? Uncharted sector, designation? E9. It's marked as restricted. No known colonies," she frowned. "Patch it through." The sound filled the bridge and static, then a deep, rhythmic voice repeating in an old Terran dialect. The translation software struggled but finally displayed a message on screen. "This is Terran Defense Network. Emergency Protocol 7. Awaiting response." The room went silent. Lieutenant Koro's eyes widened. "Terran Defense Network? That name—" "Yes," Valsaren interrupted coldly. "The humans called their forces Terran. This is probably an echo signal from a wrecked probe." Still, something about the voice disturbed her. It sounded calm, measured, almost alive. Koro hesitated. "Commander, should we investigate?" Valsaren exhaled slowly. She wanted to dismiss it, yet curiosity whispered at the back of her mind. The Zerathian Dominion prided itself on uncovering truth. Leaving the signal unchecked would be cowardice. "Prepare a scout fleet," she ordered. "We'll verify the source. If it's nothing, we'll erase the frequency from the records." "Yes?" "Commander." 3 days later, the Radiant Fang and 2 escort cruisers dropped out of hyperspace above a dying planet. The world below was silent, gray clouds swirling over shattered continents. Lightning danced across broken cities that looked as if they had once reached the heavens. Towers lay half buried in dust, oceans reduced to glass plains. "Planetary scan complete," said the navigation officer. "No signs of life. Radiation levels minimal. Artificial structures detected, many still standing." Valsaren folded her arms. "Bring us into orbit. We'll take a ground team to locate the beacon." Her soldiers prepared quickly, their boots clicking on the metallic floor as they marched toward the transport bay. Valsaren joined them, helmet in hand. Lieutenant Koro stepped beside her. "Commander, you don't believe this is real, do you?" She smirked. "Lieutenant, I believe in evidence." "Let's go find it." The transport ship sliced through the ash-gray clouds and landed on a cracked landing pad near what had once been a city. A faded sign lay half buried under debris. The letters were strange, curved, and worn. Coro brushed off the dust and read softly, New Chicago. The city was a skeleton of steel. Vehicles lay frozen in place, buildings hollow and burned. Every sound echoed through the empty streets. The soldiers advanced carefully, their scanners humming. Beacon signal is close, said Coro. About 200 meters underground. Valcerin followed the readings into a half-collapsed structure that led down to a bunker. A rusted door blocked the way, but with a flash of plasma, it gave way. Inside was darkness, and silence that felt almost alive. The walls were lined with machines and consoles, all long dead. Then as their light swept across the room, words written in a forgotten tongue came into view. UN Defense Command, Forward Base Echo. Coro froze. Commander, this is human writing. Valcerin's jaw tightened. Or a clever forgery. They moved deeper. In the central chamber stood rows of large, oval-shaped pods. Most were shattered, their contents turned to dust. But one, at the far end, still glowed faintly blue. The beacon signal came from within it. Energy reading detected, said one soldier. Very faint but stable. Valcerin stepped closer, studying the pod. It was covered in frost, its glass fogged over. She wiped the surface with her glove and froze. Inside, suspended in a pale blue liquid, was a figure, a human. The face was calm, expression steady even in sleep. The body was muscular, marked with faded scars. A strange armor covered parts of the chest, old, battle-worn, yet crafted with care. Coro whispered, "He's real." Valcerin stared, disbelief turning into nervous laughter. Impossible. This must be a preserved specimen from ancient times. But then the pod moved. Lights flickered. The hum of ancient power filled the room. Warnings flashed across the control panels in languages no one had spoken in centuries. "Commander, energy surge detected," shouted Coro. The soldiers raised their weapons. The glass cracked, steam hissed out, and the pod slowly opened with a metallic sigh. The figure inside gasped and stumbled forward, coughing. The soldiers stepped back, weapons ready. He looked around, confusion in his eyes. Then his gaze fixed on Valcerin. The man's voice was hoarse, but strong. "Status report, Commander." "Are we still fighting?" Valcerin didn't move. For the first time in her life, she didn't know what to say. They carried him back to the ship. Medical scans confirmed the impossible. The man was biologically human. No genetic modification, no alien DNA, pure Terran origin. As he rested in the med bay, Valcerin stood beside the glass, watching him breathe. The lines on his face, the scars, and they told a story of war, not legend. Coro approached quietly. "Commander." "What now?" Valcerin didn't answer immediately. Her eyes stayed on the human. The myths she had mocked her entire career now lay sleeping before her eyes. Finally, she whispered, "Prepare a full report for High Command. And keep this quiet. Until I understand what we found, no one outside this ship will know." "Yes, Commander." But deep inside, she felt something she hadn't felt in years, not fear, not anger, but something far more dangerous, doubt. Because if the humans were real, then everything the Dominion believed about strength, courage, and war might have been wrong all along. Captain Nathan Cole opened his eyes to a strange ceiling of cold metal and soft lights. The room hummed quietly with machinery he did not recognize. For a moment, he could not remember where he was. Only the echoes of war, explosions, fire, commands shouted across smoky fields. Then he remembered everything. The collapse wars, the last mission, the warning signal, and finally, the long frozen sleep. He moved slowly, testing his limbs. The armor felt different, worn, and unfamiliar. Yet its weight reminded him of discipline and training. Humans had always known the power of preparation. Even in slumber, he felt ready. "Status report," he muttered quietly to himself, just like he had learned as a Marine. His voice was hoarse but steady. A soft hiss came from the door. Valcerin appeared, tall, scaled, her expression unreadable. She stepped inside with caution, holding a tablet-like device. "You're awake," she said flatly. Cole's gaze met hers. "Commander?" he asked, scanning the room with a trained eye. "Are we still fighting?" Valsaren paused. Her mind raced. This human, this legend, had asked a question no one had ever expected to hear. "I am Commander Valsaren of the Zyrathian Dominion," she said slowly. "You are?" "Awake after centuries," Cole nodded, processing the words. "Report situation, friends, enemy." Valsaren frowned. "You are?" "Centuries out of time. You fought long ago. Your world, Earth 3XM, is gone." The beacon you sent was an automated distress signal. Cole's eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with resolve. "Then we fight now. Situation first." Her officers watched quietly as Cole assessed the room, the ship, the instruments, all with the instincts of a soldier trained for survival. Valsaren felt a chill. The man's focus, his calm under unknown circumstances, was alien to her, yet deeply familiar in its strength. "Do you understand what century it is?" she asked. Cole shook his head. "Doesn't matter. Fight is fight. Enemy is enemy. Protect the living. Complete the mission." Even Valsaren could not suppress a shiver. There was a power in this human's conviction. Not mystical, not technological, but raw, precise, and unshakable. The next hours passed in briefings and scans. Cole absorbed every piece of information, asking sharp questions about fleet strength, enemy positions, and potential threats. The crew had prepared for uncharted sectors and minor skirmishes, but nothing like this human's tactical mind. "Kralak's swarm," he said finally, reading reports from the Dominion database. "Biomechanical, fast, coordinated, overwhelming numbers. Standard combat won't work. We'll need layers, decoys, and concentrated strikes." Valsaren's jaw tightened. She had expected arrogance, perhaps confusion, not strategy that rivaled the best Dominion commanders. "And what do you propose, Captain?" she asked cautiously. Cole smiled faintly, almost humorless. "We use their speed against them. Force them into kill zones, cut off supply streams, and concentrate fire on command nodes. They'll think they are hunting us. They won't know we lead them into death," her officers murmured. Such tactics were considered unconventional, risky. But Cole's voice carried certainty. It was not recklessness. It was experience, hard-earned over countless battles. Valsaren found herself wondering, had humans really been this skilled? Were these stories true after all? Cole spent the next cycle walking the ship, observing every system, touching the controls, asking questions about engines, shields, weapons, and communication arrays. Every answer was met with a quiet nod. By the evening, he requested armor, a weapon, and clearance to visit the fleet's forward scouting ships. Valsaren hesitated. The human could be dangerous, yes, but he had proven instinctively he was also irreplaceable. "Very well," she said finally, "but you move under supervision." Cole's eyes gleamed faintly. "Understood, Commander. But remember, supervision slows reaction time. Reaction time costs lives." The first encounter came sooner than expected. The scouts reported unusual energy readings from a nearby sector, a region thought abandoned. Cole analyzed the patterns in seconds. "These are not natural formations. The Kralaks are scouting. Minimal strength, but they probe defenses," he said. "If ignored, they'll report us. We strike tonight or we lose the initiative." Valsaren followed him to the bridge as he gave orders. The fleet moved like a single organism under his guidance. Ships fell into formations he calculated in moments. Screens flashed as weapons calibrated and shields adjusted. Then, the Kralaks appeared. They emerged from hyperspace in a swarm of metal and energy. Thousands of biomechanical ships moving with terrifying coordination. The fleet hesitated, unsure of where to strike first. Cole's voice cut through the bridge. "Hold fire. Let them enter the kill zone. Concentrate on the lead ships. Use their momentum against them." Valsaren watched, almost unable to believe it. The human was right. The enemy moved exactly as he predicted. When the first wave entered the designated zone, the fleet struck with precise timing. Ships exploded in controlled bursts, debris scattering in predictable patterns. Cole stood at the forefront of the boarding force. His old Terran training showed in every movement, calculated, disciplined, and fearless. Unlike Zyrathians, who relied on sheer energy output, Cole relied on skill and anticipation. He moved like a predator and a guardian at once. After the skirmish, the fleet regrouped. Casualties were fewer than expected, thanks entirely to the human soldier. Valsaren, who had once mocked humans as myths, now stood in stunned silence. Her officers whispered in amazement. He just turned the tide." "Yes," Valsaren said quietly. "And this is only the beginning. Cole surveyed the field. He did not celebrate. Victory was temporary. He already considered the next move. Defenses, fallback positions, contingencies. Humans were trained to plan for failure, to fight smarter when stronger enemies appeared. "You fought well," Valcerin admitted, hesitantly. "Better than we expected." Cole's gaze met hers. "I fight for survival, not expectation." She felt a strange respect rise within her, mixed with unease. Humans were not just fighters. They were adaptable, resilient, unpredictable. Everything the Dominion prided itself on. Yet somehow more. The human soon began instructing small units, showing them how to use terrain, coordinate fire, and anticipate enemy behavior. At first the Zerathians resisted. They were proud, confident, and unwilling to take lessons from a creature they had dismissed as myth. But results spoke louder than pride. During a simulation, Cole led a team of cadets through a mock battle. Using nothing but minimal weapons and terrain analysis, he turned a hopeless scenario into a perfect victory. The cadets were stunned. They had followed procedures exactly, yet it was his insight, his intuition, that won the day. Valcerin watched in silence. She had trained her life to command the best soldiers in the Dominion. Yet here was a human, centuries removed from his world, teaching her cadets skills she had never considered. By the end of the first week, Cole had become indispensable. He moved through the ship like a force of nature, quiet, calm, and deadly efficient. He did not boast. He did not demand attention. Yet everyone followed him, not out of fear, but out of respect. One night Valcerin approached him quietly in the medbay. The hum of the ship surrounded them, a gentle reminder that the stars outside held both wonder and danger. "You are unlike anything I have ever known," she said softly. Cole looked at her. "And you are learning. That is good," she smiled faintly. "You teach discipline, strategy, courage, all the things humans were said to have in stories." Cole's eyes narrowed slightly. "Stories? We were real. We still are." "You will see," Valcerin's heart pounded. For the first time, she felt the stirrings of doubt and curiosity together. This soldier, this human, had awakened something within her, something that had been missing for decades. In the darkness of space, aboard a ship that had faced many battles, the human lay in the medbay, planning, preparing, observing. The galaxy would soon realize that he was not a relic. He was a weapon, a teacher, a force, and the myth of humanity was about to become real once more. And far away, in the shadowed sectors, the Kralax swarm began to move. They had sensed something different, something alive, something dangerous. Captain Nathan Cole stood on the bridge of the Radiant Fang, scanning the sector through the ship's wide viewing window. Stars stretched endlessly before him, punctuated by the glowing trails of distant ships. His eyes were sharp, alert, every sense tuned to patterns that others could not see. Valcerin watched him quietly. He had grown more confident with every hour. The crew no longer doubted his abilities. Even the officers who had once scoffed at the stories of human warriors now deferred to his judgment. A warning blinked on the tactical panel. "Commander, sensors detect movement in Sector Delta 9, said Lieutenant Coro. "It's the Kralax. Main fleet. They're advancing faster than predicted." Cole's eyes narrowed. "They are probing for weaknesses. They will underestimate us." "That is their mistake." Valcerin crossed her arms. "Your plan?" "We create a trap," Cole said. "They will think they have advantage. We will use mobility and concentrated fire. I will lead the strike team on the front lines." Valcerin felt a shiver of unease. The human had volunteered to lead the attack himself. He was centuries out of time in a galaxy of alien enemies, and yet he moved with complete confidence. The fleet prepared quickly. Ships shifted into formation with precision, guided by Cole's tactical commands. He studied the enemy's patterns, calculating approach angles, firing sequences, and retreat paths. Every move was exact, every calculation based on instinct honed in real combat. "All units," he said, voice calm but commanding. "Hold fire until the first wave enters the kill zone. Target the Kralax lead ships. Strike hard and fast. Protect civilians and fleet integrity at all costs." The fleet obeyed, though many still whispered doubts. How could one human dictate the movements of thousands of alien soldiers and ships? Yet as Cole's orders unfolded, the answer became clear. Because his strategy worked. The Kralix fleet emerged from hyperspace. Their metallic hulls shimmered with energy, reflecting the lights of distant stars. Ships moved in swarming patterns, each vessel signaling to the others in coordinated precision. For a moment, the Zerathian crew felt fear. They had seen biomechanical fleets before, but never one so large, so perfectly synchronized. Cole raised his hand. "Wait!" Seconds later, the Kralax entered the trap. The fleet opened fire, concentrated bursts designed to disable and confuse. Explosions rippled through the swarm. Ships spun out of control, colliding in devastating patterns that seemed almost artistic in their symmetry. Valsaren gasped. Every prediction Cole had made was accurate. Every maneuver he had ordered worked flawlessly. It was as if the human could see the battle before it happened. Cole led a boarding strike team on a small assault vessel. His movements were precise. His soldiers followed instinctively. When Kralax boarding drones attacked, Cole dispatched them with careful, efficient strikes. His every action minimized risk and maximized impact. One officer whispered, "He fights like the legends say." Valsaren said nothing. She could only watch as the human executed tactics she had never considered. The battle intensified. The Kralax sent waves of reinforcements attempting to break the trap, yet Cole's team anticipated every move. He modified Zerathian weapons on the fly, adding stabilizers, adjusting energy output and repurposing defensive drones as mobile turrets. The enemy faltered. Confusion spread through the swarm. Their coordination, once flawless, began to crack. Every attack met a counter. Every advance was anticipated and neutralized. Cole paused for a moment to survey the battlefield. Ships that had been on the verge of destruction now stood firm. His strategy was not only holding, it was winning. Valsaren approached him as he issued rapid-fire commands. How are you doing this?" she asked, awe mixing with disbelief. Cole looked at her calmly. "This is what humans do. We adapt. We fight smarter when stronger enemies appear. The more impossible the odds, the sharper we become." Her chest tightened. The pride she had in the Dominion soldiers felt incomplete. Compared to this one human, all their training seemed limited. Hours passed. The Kralax fleet had been reduced by more than half. The remaining ships attempted a retreat. Cole knew they would return stronger, but victory in this engagement was vital. He led a small boarding party to the enemy flagship, a massive biomechanical construct bristling with energy weapons. Cole's squad moved with silent precision. Explosions shook the corridors, but Cole's training guided them forward. Finally, they reached the command chamber. Its walls pulsed with living metal. The Kralax commander, a towering figure of wires and steel, turned toward them. Its voice resonated like grinding metal. "You are human," it said, extinct yet persistent. Cole did not hesitate. "I am alive," he said simply, charging forward. The battle was swift. Cole's team used tactics no Kralax could anticipate. Feints, misdirection, concentrated strikes. Within minutes, the flagship's systems failed. Its energy core destabilized. Cole ordered a retreat just as the ship began to collapse inward. They escaped, leaving a trail of destruction behind. Back on the Radiant Fang, Cole stood quietly, cleaning his weapon. Valsaren approached him. "You saved countless lives today," she said softly. "Entire fleets might have fallen without you." Cole nodded. "I fight to protect. Victory is only meaningful if the living survive." Her gaze lingered on him. "You've changed everything we thought about humans. We never imagined one soldier could do so much." Cole smiled faintly. "Humans were never meant to be imagined. We were meant to be remembered." She felt a mixture of admiration and unease. For centuries, she had taught her cadets that humans were myths, that courage and skill could only reach so far. Now, standing before the living proof, she had to admit she had been wrong. Over the following days, Cole worked tirelessly. He trained Zerathian squads not just in combat, but in thinking like a human soldier, anticipating, improvising, and trusting instincts. Slowly, the Dominion soldiers began to see what she had already realized. Humans were not stronger because of armor or weapons, but because of their will, creativity, and resilience. Cole also studied Zerathian technology, adapting it with subtle modifications. He combined his ancient methods with their advanced systems. The result was deadly efficient. Weapons more accurate, shields more flexible, drones more versatile. One young cadet, once skeptical, approached him. Captain, how can one human do all this? Cole smiled faintly. It is not about me. It is about what humans can teach. We turn weakness into strength. We turn fear into strategy. That is why we survived. Valsaren listened to their conversations from a distance, her respect growing. She realized something profound. Humans were not just soldiers, they were catalysts. They inspired others to rise beyond limits, to see potential where others saw only despair. But the shadow of the Kralax still loomed. Cole knew the first engagement was only the beginning. The swarm would return stronger, angrier, more organized. He gathered Valsaren in the tactical chamber. We need to prepare, he said. They will come in force. The next battle will be harder. If we rely only on technology and numbers, we will fail. But if we combine discipline, strategy, and courage, we can win. Valsaren nodded, her heart pounding. And you will lead? Cole's eyes met hers, steady and unwavering. I will fight alongside your soldiers, not above them. Together, we survive, or we fall together. For the first time, Valsaren felt a sense of partnership she had never known. This human, this soldier from the past, was teaching her the meaning of courage, leadership, and the human spirit. The fleet readied itself for the next encounter. Sensors scanned for Kralax movements, ships were repaired, weapons recalibrated, and crews trained under Cole's guidance. And in the quiet moments before battle, Valsaren walked to the viewing window again. Watching the stars stretch endlessly ahead, she whispered to herself, almost as if speaking to the universe. Perhaps humans were never myths. Perhaps they were always meant to be remembered. In the shadows of space, the Kralax swarm moved closer, sensing life, sensing challenge, sensing something dangerous they could not understand. Nathan Cole did not sleep. He prepared, he observed, he calculated. For centuries he had waited for a fight that mattered. And now, in the depths of the galaxy, he would prove why humans were legendary. The next battle would decide more than survival. It would decide the fate of a fleet, a dominion, and perhaps the legacy of humanity itself. The stars outside the viewing window stretched endlessly, a sea of silver and blue that seemed both beautiful and dangerous. Commander Valsaren stood silently, watching the lights of the fleet blinking in formation. Every ship was repaired, every crew member trained, and yet a tension hung in the air. The Kralax swarm would not wait. Their return was imminent, larger and more deadly than before. Beside her, Captain Nathan Cole studied a holographic map of the sector. Lines of strategy crisscrossed the projection, showing enemy positions, fleet formations, and attack routes. Every movement had been calculated, every contingency considered. Yet he did not look at the map with pride. His focus was on the soldiers. They are skilled, Cole said quietly. But skill is useless without understanding, without courage. We must teach them to fight like humans, not just with weapons, but with their minds and hearts. Valsaren tilted her head. Your humans rely on willpower over technology. And yet you've proven it works, Cole nodded. Willpower is only part of it. Discipline, adaptability, teamwork. Every human is trained to anticipate, improvise, and endure. That is what makes us effective, even against overwhelming odds. Valsaren realized, with a mixture of awe and unease, that she had never thought about war this way. The Dominion soldiers had relied on power, on numbers, on advanced weapons. Yet here was a human, centuries old, showing her a new path, one built on courage, creativity, and the spirit of humanity. Cole began his training immediately. He worked with squads in the simulation chambers, demonstrating tactics that combined his ancient knowledge with Zerathian technology. The cadets and seasoned soldiers alike were skeptical at first. How could one human teach creatures they considered far superior in strength, intelligence, and technology? The first demonstration changed everything. A squad was placed in a simulated urban battlefield. Drones, enemy formations, and traps were all set to challenge them. Cole watched as the soldiers hesitated, unsure how to react. Do not wait, he barked. Do not calculate endlessly. Act, predict, trust your instincts, adapt. He moved beside them, showing by example. With each step, he demonstrated positioning, timing, and improvisation. He ducked under laser fire, rolled behind cover, and used minimal energy to disable mechanical enemies. Each move was deliberate, precise, and deadly efficient. By the end of the simulation, the squad had not only succeeded, they had surpassed the expected outcome. The cadets stared at him wide-eyed. One whispered, He turned the entire scenario around. Valsaren, standing nearby, felt her scales tighten with emotion. Pride, astonishment, and an unfamiliar warmth all mingled together. This human soldier, who had once been a myth, was teaching her people something they had never learned. That courage, discipline, and ingenuity could make any soldier great. Over the next cycles, Cole did more than train soldiers in combat. He taught them to think like humans. He taught patience, observation, and creative problem-solving. He encouraged collaboration, showing that even the strongest individual could fail without teamwork. In one exercise, he split a squad into 2 groups, each tasked with defending separate sectors. Both sides had equal technology and strength. The cadets immediately focused on raw force. They fired without thinking, relied on their shields, and acted predictably. Cole intervened. "You fight like machines," he said sharply. "Machines react. Humans anticipate. Humans adapt. Every move must have purpose. Every decision must consider the unexpected." He paused and added quietly, "A soldier without imagination is a soldier who dies first." Slowly, the cadets began to change. Their movements became deliberate, their attacks calculated, their defenses flexible. They began to think creatively, improvising solutions Cole had not even suggested. Valsaren observed this transformation with fascination. She had never seen the Dominion soldiers evolve so quickly. She had trained them herself for decades. Yet it was this human, centuries removed from the galaxy, who unlocked their potential. Cole also spoke to the officers in private sessions, discussing strategy, ethics, and leadership. He explained that war was not just about victory but about responsibility. Protect the innocent, minimize collateral damage, and always act with honor. "Humans fight not for conquest," he said one evening. "We fight to survive, to protect, to endure. Strength alone is meaningless without purpose. A true warrior understands this." Valsaren listened, reflecting on her past campaigns. She had always fought for the Dominion, for orders, for duty, but never for something beyond obedience. Now she understood that a soldier's spirit mattered as much as their skill. The real test came when intelligence reported the Kralak swarm moving closer to the sector in unprecedented numbers. Scouts estimated millions of ships, advanced formations, and biomechanical adaptations that had not been seen before. Valsaren turned to Cole. "They are coming. You've trained my soldiers, yes, but can they survive against such force?" Cole's expression was calm, unwavering. "They will. Not because they are stronger, but because they now understand what humans have always understood. Fear is not the enemy. Hesitation is. Courage, clarity, and unity are stronger than any weapon." He paused, studying the map. "We will fight together. I will not lead from above. I will fight beside them. If we fall as one. But if we survive, we show that humans were never myths. We show that courage can ignite across species." Valsaren swallowed hard. She realized that she was no longer just commanding a fleet. She was learning from one soldier how to inspire, lead, and believe. Days passed in preparation. Cole worked tirelessly, not resting even when the fleet was ready. He reviewed every possible scenario, adjusted formations, and coordinated attacks. He also spent time with the cadets outside simulations. He shared stories of battles from centuries past, not for glory but for lessons. Stories of soldiers who had been outnumbered, outgunned, and yet had survived through ingenuity, resilience, and determination. The cadets listened, captivated. They began to understand that victory was not about raw power but about heart. Valsaren watched one young soldier approach Cole. "Captain," he said hesitantly, I never knew humans could be like this. We thought stories were exaggerations." Cole smiled faintly. "Stories only capture part of the truth. The rest comes from living it." Even the crew of the Radiant Fang began to change. Their coordination improved, their confidence grew, and they began to anticipate moves that even Cole had not predicted. The human had ignited a spark, the spark of ingenuity, resilience, and courage. Valsaren found herself standing in the observation deck one night, looking at the stars. Cole was below, speaking with a squad of cadets, instructing them patiently and firmly. She reflected on everything that had changed in just a few cycles. Humans were not myths. They were real. They were dangerous, yes, but not because of weapons or technology. They were dangerous because of their spirit. their unwillingness to surrender, their relentless drive to survive, and their ability to inspire others. She whispered softly, almost to herself. Perhaps we have misunderstood strength all along. The final warning came hours later. Sensors detected the Kralak swarm emerging from hyperspace. Thousands of ships in perfect formation. They advanced like a living storm, intent on destruction. Valsaren felt a familiar tension in her chest, but it was different this time. She no longer feared. She had learned, she had trained, and she had hope, because Captain Cole had shown her what humans could do. Cole stood on the bridge, calm and ready. His eyes scanned the fleet, then the approaching enemy. He turned to Valsaren. "Remember what I taught you," he said. "This is more than a battle. This is the moment where courage and will become stronger than fear. Lead your soldiers. Trust them. Trust yourself," Valsaren nodded. For the first time, she felt the weight of responsibility shared, not alone. She had learned that leadership was not just command, but belief. Belief in those who fight beside you, and in the spirit that refuses to yield. Outside, the Kralak swarm drew closer. The stars seemed to tremble with their advance. Inside, the radiant fang hummed with readiness, and Captain Nathan Cole prepared to prove that humans were more than legend. They were a force that could inspire across galaxies, that could teach courage, and that could ignite hope even in the darkest corners of space. And so, the galaxy waited, holding its breath as the first signs of war against the Kralaks grew near. The stars outside the radiant fang stretched like silver rivers through the black of space. But there was no beauty tonight, only the shadows of war. The Kralak swarm advanced relentlessly, their massive ships bristling with energy weapons and sharp biomechanical appendages. Millions of enemy ships moved in coordinated waves like a storm that could devour worlds. Commander Valsaren stood on the bridge, her golden scales gleaming under the soft lights of the ship. Her heart pounded with anticipation. She had fought countless battles, commanded fleets across the galaxy. Yet she had never felt anything like this. The stakes were higher than ever, and the enemy was unlike anything she had faced before. Beside her, Captain Nathan Cole moved with calm precision. His eyes scanned the approaching swarm, his mind calculating angles, timing, and tactics faster than any computer could. He did not show fear. He had fought impossible battles before, and he had survived. Now he would lead not just by command, but by example. "Commander," Cole said, his voice steady, "this is the moment we fight for more than survival. This is the moment we prove what humans and those who stand with us can achieve. Stay close, watch, learn, and lead your soldiers with courage." Valsaren nodded. For the first time in her career, she felt true inspiration, drawn not from power or technology, but from the human beside her. The battle began with a sudden flash. The Kralak swarm advanced, firing energy blasts that illuminated the void like storms of blue fire. The Dominion fleet responded, firing shields, lasers, and plasma beams. Explosions rocked the radiant fang, yet Cole remained focused, his hands steady as he issued commands. "Target lead ships. Let the outer wave pass. Concentrate fire on command nodes. Protect the center." The fleet moved like a single organism, guided by Cole's strategy. Ships twisted and dodged, absorbing impacts while returning devastating fire. Every movement had been calculated, yet it felt fluid, unpredictable. The very essence of human ingenuity applied to alien technology. Valsaren watched in awe. One human, centuries out of time, had turned a terrified fleet into a coordinated force capable of matching millions of enemies. She had laughed at the stories of human warriors once. Now she saw the truth. Cole led the boarding team on a small assault vessel. His squad, a mix of humans revived from stasis pods and Zyrathian soldiers, moved through the corridors of an enemy ship with precision. Energy blades and plasma rifles were ready, but Cole relied not only on weapons but on tactics. "Cover each other," he ordered. "Move as one. Predict the enemy. Use what they do against them. Do not panic." The Kralaks attacked in waves, their movements sharp and deadly, yet Cole anticipated each strike. He dodged, rolled, and countered with pinpoint efficiency. His team followed instinctively, inspired by his calm courage. One Zyrathian soldier whispered, He fights like a legend." Cole did not answer. He moved forward, cutting a path through the enemy, clearing corridors, securing command points. Every action was deliberate, conserving energy, saving lives, maximizing effect. His presence elevated every soldier around him, turning fear into courage. Back on the bridge, Val Saren coordinated the fleet under Cole's guidance. The Kralax flagship, massive and alive with energy, threatened the center of their formation. Cole's strategy required risk. A small team would board and disable the ship from within, while the fleet distracted the rest of the swarm. Val Saren hesitated. "This is dangerous. Too dangerous." Cole's eyes met hers. "Commander, danger is part of war. But courage changes outcomes. We act now or the fleet will be destroyed. Trust the soldiers and trust the human spirit." With that, the boarding vessel launched. Cole and his team entered the flagship, dodging defenses and neutralizing enemy control nodes. They fought their way to the core, where the energy heart of the Kralax vessel pulsed with alien power. "Prepare to detonate the core," Cole said. "We'll have one chance." The team moved quickly. Timing was everything. Cole adjusted devices, rerouted power, and ensured the team was clear. Then, with a final command, the core erupted in controlled energy, tearing the flagship apart from within. The explosion radiated across the battlefield. Enemy ships faltered, formations broke, and the momentum of the Kralax swarm collapsed. As the fleet watched, victory became possible. But the battle was not over. The swarm's remaining ships were still millions strong. They regrouped, advancing for another assault. Cole emerged from the flagship wreckage, battered but unbroken. Val Saren ran to meet him. "Captain, you're alive." "You risked everything." Cole nodded. "Survival is not about avoiding risk. It is about facing it. Every soldier must do their part." He turned to the fleet. "Now we end this together. Stand firm. Protect each other. Show them what humans, and those who fight with humans, can do." With renewed coordination, the fleet counterattacked. Every ship, every squad, every soldier moved with purpose. Cole's leadership inspired courage. Where fear had threatened to paralyze, determination now surged. The battle reached its peak. Kralax ships crashed and exploded. Their swarm coordination shattered. Yet the flagship's destruction had created chaos, giving the Dominion fleet the upper hand. Cole fought on the front lines, disabling enemy control nodes, securing survivors, and protecting his team. Val Saren watched him in awe. She had spent her life commanding soldiers, yet none had moved with such precision, bravery, and inspiration. Cole was not just a soldier. He was a symbol. Suddenly, the Kralax Queen's vessel emerged, enormous and terrifying, bristling with energy spikes and weapons. It targeted the Radiant Fang directly, firing a massive beam. The ship rocked violently. Cole ran to Val Saren's side. "We cannot let her destroy the command center." "I will take the lead," she protested. "No, it's too dangerous." Cole's eyes were steady. "Humans don't run. We finish the fight." He grabbed a shuttle, rallied a team, and charged toward the Queen's vessel. Every moment counted. Every calculation mattered. Cole's team fought through swarms of drones, disabling systems and planting explosives at critical points. The Queen's ship roared in defense, but Cole's calm focus guided the assault. Timing, coordination, and courage combined. Finally, with the explosives in place, the vessel's core destabilized. Cole ordered retreat, just as the Queen's ship detonated in a massive explosion, lighting up the void like a new star. Back aboard the Radiant Fang, the fleet had survived. The Kralax swarm was scattered, broken, and fleeing. The Dominion ship celebrated, but not recklessly. They knew the battle had been won through courage, skill, and unity. Val Saren approached Cole, tears in her eyes. You've proven everything we thought we knew about humans was wrong. You saved us all." Cole looked at her, quiet but proud. "I did not do it alone. Every soldier, every officer, every crew member fought with courage. Humans are strong, yes, but it is spirit, will, and unity that matter most. That is what changes the outcome." She nodded. "And you've taught us that. I will record this in the archives. Not as myth, not as story, but as history. Humanity is real, and your spirit is a lesson for all of us." The fleet drifted through space in silence, watching the remnants of the swarm vanish into distant sectors. Val Saren looked at the human beside her. The warrior who had defied time, fought impossible odds, and inspired her entire fleet. "You've done more than fight," she whispered. "You've changed the way we think, the way we lead, the way we believe." Cole smiled faintly. "That is the power of humans. We fight, we endure, we inspire, and when the time comes, we lead by example, not by fear." The Radiant Fang and its fleet continued through the galaxy, stronger, wiser, and united. The legend of humanity, once dismissed as myth, was now undeniable. Across the stars, soldiers would remember that courage, intelligence, and spirit could triumph even in the darkest moments. And somewhere, deep in space, the echoes of human bravery would ripple across generations, inspiring countless worlds. Commander Valsaren stood at the observation deck gazing at the stars. "Perhaps myths are not just stories," she said softly. "Perhaps they are reminders that courage can survive time, that humanity can endure." Captain Nathan Cole, the soldier from a forgotten age, had proved it, and the galaxy would never forget.